Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Secret Resume podcast, hosted by me, Melody Moore. In this podcast, we explore the people, places, and experiences that have shaped my guests, those which have influenced who they are as people and where they are in their work life today. You can listen in as we have a rich exploration of often unexamined and undiscussed, but very important aspects of their lives, or as I like to call it, their secret resume. My guest today is Hannah Thoresby. Hannah's career has spanned the breadth of creative disciplines, from fine art to branding, marketing, design, packaging, animation, and more recently, internal communications. And this is where she has found her true passion and purpose. She founded H&H in 2011 with her business partner Helen, blending behavioural psychology, strategic thinking with creativity to positively transform the way people communicate, connect and interact in organisations to improve employee experience. They are a leader in internal communications and employee engagement, partners to many well-known global brands, and proud to have been voted Best IC Agency 11 years in a row. Thank you, Hannah. I'm so excited to speak to you today. We've known each other for a while now, and I'm just really excited to get into your secret resume, your story and your history, and how you've developed and running your agency, which you've been doing since 2011, H&H. I just want shall we just start with a little bit about what H&H is? And then we'll go right back to the beginning and talk about how did you get there in the first place?
Okay. So hi Mel, it's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. H&H is an internal communications and employee engagement agency. We work with global brands to help them enhance their employee experience and communicate, in engaging ways with their people to really kind of ensure that the working world is the best it can possibly be, so everybody feels valued and appreciated.
Brilliant. Thank you. So let's go right back in time. We've got to where you are now. Tell me about how it all began. We talked a little bit before this. Tell me a bit about your family, your upbringing, the influences that were on you at that time.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating to reflect back because it's not something I do very often. I'm definitely a forward-looking person, and very rarely do I look back. But it's been wonderful actually to think back on what has brought me here today, and to appreciate really the people that have influenced me along the way and the decisions that I've taken and choices that I've made, and to realise that actually I can be very grateful for that. It's good to be in the position that I'm in now, but it's not always been easy. So a little reminder and appreciation for the journey has been good. But yes, so I've been very lucky to be part of quite a big family, and I have parents who instilled from me very early on a working appreciation for hard graft, for work, and although in very different ways. So my mum is somebody who, raised 4 children whilst working as a nurse, which is very demanding work, whilst running a household in the absence of my father, who worked overseas. He was in the oil industry, so he was quite often absent from the family home. And I lived in Cardiff in Wales for 10 years, first 10 years of my life. And I just observed every day her energy, her commitment to keeping everything running smoothly, and obviously handling 4 very, very hyper kids. So she instilled a great sense of we all need to work hard. My dad is a very logical father. He's hugely intelligent, a very factual, logical, processy kind of person who values topics, who values physics, mathematics, economics, these hugely intellectual pursuits. And whilst my elder brother and sister both kind of fall into that camp somewhat, their brains are wired similarly. Myself and my younger brother were the contrast to that, were the more creative minds. And I think that comes from my mum's side of the family, that does have a quite a strong sense of creativity running through it. There are, I know that my grandma wrote poems. My auntie Dot was a China painter. You can see where there has been a history of creativity running through the genes. And my younger brother and I definitely picked that up. So I'm not going to say I was a disappointment to my dad, but he found that difficult to grasp and to appreciate and to understand where I was coming from. So whilst he has always encouraged me to pursue the maths, the economics, the physics, because it would lead to a good steady career with a good income, and that would see me well in life, my whole being just screamed against that path, because I'm not wired for that kind of thinking. It's uncomfortable. I try and step into that logical thought processing and problem solving, and that's where I run into difficulties, because I can't concentrate for long enough. My brain flits off into flights of fancy and imagination and, all sorts of thoughts that distract me, basically. So as much as I tried to fit into that mould throughout my GCSEs and A-levels to please my father, mainly, not my mum, but my father, it was never going to lead to happiness for me. So when I chose my A-levels and my degree path, and I spoke to my dad about it, and I said, I'd like to kind of go do fine art. I'd like to pursue maybe design as a career. He said to me, no. He said, Han, no, you don't want to be doing that arty farty crap. That's never gonna get you anywhere. You'll never make any money, and it's just no, you don't want to do that. Get yourself down and do your maths. And I think at that point, when I looked at him and he kind of said that to me, I took that then as an opportunity to prove him wrong. It was almost like he put a challenge on the table. It was like it fueled me. It kind of caused me to react in a way as if to say, right, I'm going to show you what this passion that I've got, this need to channel my creativity, to every day to channel this somewhere. I'm going to prove to you that it's possible to make this something. And that was it. And that has fueled me every day since to prove him wrong. And I don't know what that says about me. I'm not sure what that says about me as a personality and as a character, but yeah, I thank him for that, to be honest, Yeah.
Did it cause arguments between you? For your A-levels, you did art, presumably.
Yeah.
Did it cause arguments about what you were going to do?
Thankfully not. And I think once he realised that I was adamant that this was going to be a path I was going to pursue, he has always supported me in that. He bought me my first computer, which, opened up my graphic design world, the digital design world, massively, made it possible for me to learn the ropes. So he has supported me in it. But I just think for quite some years, he quietly observed and thought, yeah, I told you it was going to be hard, and it was hard. It was really hard. Art, I kind of knew instinctively that fine art was going to be an uphill battle, to break into that market and make yourself a successful fine artist is a huge undertaking.
And when you say fine art, that's, for those of us who are not in that world, that means, becoming an artist, as,
yes.
Selling your pictures. That's where that would lead you, yeah?
Exactly. So, being a painter, a sculptor, a installation artist, whatever, you really need to establish yourself as a brand. And to be honest, a totally blank canvas with no brief or anything to work to in order to put something on that canvas, I find that incredibly daunting. That intimidates me. So when I started to enter into the world of graphic design, where there is a brief to respond to, there is a problem being solved, there is something requiring a response, a creative response, that's where I found my neurons firing, that's where I found my passion kicking in. That's where I found myself moving forward and coming up with ideas, and it really kind of sparked off all sorts of thoughts and possibilities, and it's within that realm that I find myself really comfortable and really in my flow. So I think, problem solving with creativity is definitely where I'm happiest.
And so did you start discovering that when you were doing your A-levels? Is that more when you started going, because you went on then you did a art foundation? Was that when you started realizing that? What, when did you make that kind of, it's this that really gets me going?
So A-level art was your typical kind of art. It was drawing, painting, sculpture, those kind of things. So it was in art foundation that we experienced a kind of briefing. Actually, I tell a lie. I remember now, when I was at school and it was time to do work experience, I went to a design studio that my mum's sister, my auntie, was working at the University of Hull. She very kindly, as a lot of people do tend to do in families, is call upon friends and family to find these opportunities. But she gave me the chance to come into a design environment, a design agency, and spend a week experiencing what goes on in a design capacity. And they gave me there was a barbecue they were hosting at the university, on the grounds of the university, and I was asked to produce the poster and some cards. And I had the best time. I was in my element. I had the choice of fonts, and I remember designing a font that was made out of sausages to go onto a skewer to promote this event. And it was quite manual back in them days. Now we've got computers, it's all done, super quick. Back then, everything was cut out, pasted, stuck, photographed. You had bromides. The bromides went to the printers, went on the press. You had films. You had, it was such a kind of intense process that required a lot of manual intervention and actually creation. And I loved it. I loved it. And from that experience, I just went, this is what I would like to do. This is my calling. This is definitely makes me happy. So I left.
It shows how important a work experience can be for kids. I've talked about this on other podcasts about how we expect children to know what they want to do when they don't know what all the different jobs are. Well, no one does, right? I've been, in consulting for over 20 years and I still don't know what all the different jobs are. I'm constantly surprised, and there are all new ones coming up as well. But how amazing that really put you on a particular path.
You try it on for size, don't you, really? Yes. I mean, otherwise you're just considering it and thinking, maybe it would be right for me. I don't know, but the minute you step into it and experience it firsthand and it strikes all the right chords, then there you go. Yeah, becoming massively influential.
Do you know what that also makes me think about? Because so much work experience can just be really boring photocopying as well, can't it? They gave you something to do that you could own. And I think that really makes me think about how, if we're going to have people doing, internships, work experience, the power of actually giving somebody something meaningful to do rather than just using them as a unpaid photocopying clerk.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to you've got to feel like what you're doing has is accountable in some way, is going to actually make a difference. Well, for me anyway, I've discovered this, and I agree with what you're saying. I think a kind of theoretical approach or a practice project that is never going to see the light of day almost kind of sucks your soul a little bit, because you're like, what's the point? I just think, what's the point? This is going to go nowhere. So it doesn't, you don't get that intensity of motivation coming through. You don't get you don't have that sense of urgency or that need to impress, or as much anyway, I think for me that came through in university as well, because I went to university to study graphic design. And actually, this was in the years when it was 92, I went to university. They had just invented media studies as a degree. And it's loads of people take the piss out of media studies now as a degree, because it was deemed to be a bit of everything.
Watching telly.
Nothing. Yeah, watching telly and chatting about films. But for me, it was offered to me because it was a brand new course that included graphic design, but it also opened up the opportunity to experience radio, journalism, television, films, a lot of areas around media that I thought, well, actually, before I limit myself here into one path, let me explore that too. So yes, I entered into it with a very open mind, but I quickly realised that education, that particular way of learning, as in, let's study theory, let's undertake practice projects, it's just not the best environment for me in which to actually progress or feel like I'm moving forward. exactly what we're just saying. It needs to be real life situations. I need to be doing something that is actually is a live, real, in the moment, challenge. So I struggled with I struggle with the educational environment. It's like a sandpit, isn't it? It's like you're practicing what you might do in the real world. I find that really difficult. I'm not motivated by that. It seems pointless. And really, for me, it's not about gaining knowledge. I like to experience things. I experience things kinesthetically. It's not done intellectually. I feel things. I muddle through things by following my guts, by listening to my body. And I learn through doing the actual real experience.
But it sounds like it needs to be real as well. It's not just that kinesthetic, it's that having a real outcome as well.
Being answerable and seeing the impact and actually having the accountability of people, whether it's good or bad. Yeah. So university, I very quickly became disillusioned by, disheartened, lost my way a little bit. And at the end of my first year at university, I went travelling. I got the opportunity, actually. Somebody said in one of a drunken Friday night, oh, should we go travel the world? As trail finders have put a really good offer on the table, And I thought, yeah, why not? It was meant to be 3.5 months. It was 8 major stops around the globe. And I thought, well, no reason not to. I've got no excuse not to. So hopped on a plane, set off to do this 3.5 months to get back in time for the beginning of the second year. And actually it extended 6 months. And it absolutely opened my mind, opened my experiences. I realised there's a whole wide world out there to go explore. What an adventure it was. So you can imagine when I got back for my second year, how completely I'd lost all interest in it, really. I wanted to get out there. I wanted to go prove myself. I wanted to go put my mark on the world, as it were. So returning back into that safe environment and into that place where I didn't feel like I was really kind of progressing or growing in the way I wanted, it meant that after my end of my second year, which I limped through, I just walked away from that world. I stepped out of university. I wanted to go start my career. That was it. I was dying to get going.
You'd had enough.
Yeah, I'd had a bit of learning. So let's just apply it all now. Let's go.
No more learning for me. I'm done. Okay. So that then took you to a marketing agency, yeah?
It did.
How did you come to start doing that?
So because I'm quite action oriented, I've been doing a lot of design work on the side during my university years. I've been commissioned to produce branding for a new product that I knew somebody was launching. I was designing tape covers for a local radio. It was a pirate radio, actually, that were producing mixtapes, and I was doing all of the covers.
Love that. That really does age you, though.
Really does, doesn't it? And I was doing posters for events, and I was doing adverts for a local magazine. So I had a portfolio of work to demonstrate what I could do. So I looked up all of the local design agencies and I started applying for jobs. Not that they were advertising particular roles. I just wrote to them anyway and said, I'm looking for work. Can I come and show you my portfolio? And my auntie, who I mentioned, who got me my work experience, had moved out of the university and launched her own agency called MW a couple of years before. For me, I knew that she was doing that, but it wasn't an option for me in my mind at that point, because that would be too easy. And I actually didn't want to put the pressure on her of asking her and her feeling obliged to give me a job because I'm family. So I steered well clear of that. And I wrote out to all the other agencies. And she caught wind of it, obviously, through my mum and through family, and got in touch with me and kind of said, what's going on? Why would you go anywhere else other than to join me? And I said, well, because, that's just, you don't have to be nice, you don't have to just be a job. I don't mind. I much prefer to go find my own way and challenge myself over here. But she was quite convincing, quite adamant. I genuinely thought when I sat and chatted to her and she set out what she was offering me, I thought, yeah, she does actually value what I'm doing, appreciate what I've got to offer, and was also very charitable with me. It was about giving me an opportunity, and I'm forever grateful about that. And to be honest, it was the best move I could have made, because her and I get on absolutely brilliantly. We get on like a house on fire. We have so much in common. And we had 13 years of fun. I mean, we laughed. We have had moments where we've been crying with laughter together. And I think that's really important it has been in my working career anyway, all the way through. Fun, laughter, enjoyment has to be part and parcel of it, because to get through the hard times, you need that fuel in you, don't you, really? And there's a lot of challenging times. But Mary and I worked together for 13 years, and she taught me a great deal, a huge amount of on the job, because I didn't learn the theory, I didn't stick around to do all of that. She obviously had to teach me quite a lot, and she taught me brilliantly, and she was hugely patient, and she was hugely encouraging, and she's just a wonderful person.
Did you experience any challenges because you were related? I'm just wondering how other people felt about it, or did clients know you were related?
Some people were aware of that, not all of them, and we never volunteered it. We never made a big deal of it at all. There was a lot of similarities in the way that we act and behave, so I'm sure some people often thought, gosh, you two are very similar. And that family connection would have made that, made sense of that. I suspect, reflecting back, I joined Mary when I was 20 years old, and I was with her till I was 32. Inevitably, throughout that period of my life, I was learning what it takes to be fully committed to full-time work, whilst also being partly a party animal. So I'm sure there are times...
Has that changed?
Has that changed? No. Learn to manage it better. But I'm sure there'll have been times where she'll have been frustrated with me and probably quite forgiving with me because of our connection. I do wonder if there's probably times where she probably thought, Hannah's not pulling away, or she's not doing a good enough job, and I'm going to have to deal with this, and I'm going to have to pull her up on a few areas, But on the whole, I've always had quite high standards. I've always had quite a good work ethic. I'm somebody who's quite committed to what I'm doing. I'm quite passionate about what I do. So I think on the whole, that always overcame any of those situations. And together we grew that business, and I consider that a success. More because of her efforts, not mine. But yeah, it was a great experience, a really good experience.
And that ended in 2007, is that right?
Yes. So during those 13 years with Mary, she instilled in me that desire to go off and run my own agency. I could see the enjoyment she got out of creating a world that has her mark on it, and what it takes to go out and prove yourself to clients. So that was a seed that was planted in my head, that I always thought long term, I'd like to have my own agency too. Mm-hmm. But the dynamic that we had, the situation that we had with her being my auntie, meant that I could never break away and set up a competing agency. That would be a complete, kick in the teeth, given everything that she'd done for me. So it was quite a difficult situation. When she decided to retire for lots of good reasons, she looked at selling the agency that we were in at that time. And when that sold and when she stepped out, that enabled me, that gave me the freedom then to go launch and start my own agency, which was a godsend. It was 2007. I was absolutely full of excitement, energy. I was totally pumped about doing this thing. And
what was it that attracted you to doing it for yourself rather than going and finding a job in another agency?
Oh, for me, it's about the freedom to do it how I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think striving to put my mark on what we're producing and how we do it. I am a bit of a perfectionist. I do really look to surprise people and to, I love that experience when you show things to clients and they just go, wow, that was, oh my God, that's awesome. That's what I live for, really. And having the freedom to do that, to create an environment in which you can produce excellence or can produce really mind-blowing stuff. I knew that I needed to be in control of how that all comes to life. Not that Mary ever restricted me, but I think I just had this desire to create an environment in which other creatives could also have that opportunity to really express themselves, to really bring all of their talent to the fore. And I just wanted to see if I could make that happen. I just wanted to see if I could. It comes back to proving yourself. I'm realising I'm saying this a lot. something psychology-wise in this, isn't there? Why am I always proving myself? But it comes back to continuing to prove my dad wrong, that, that arty farty crap, you can, it's never going to get you far. Well, if I've got my own company doing that and doing it well, then I can prove him wrong.
So you established it with a couple of backers, is that right?
Yes, I had some clients who I'd worked with for a good number of years who loved what I did, and they were also people that I knew socially from before working with them too. So we had a very good, close relationship. We had to let all of those people know that I was leaving the agency when I did. They reached out to me and they said, "What are you doing, Han?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to set up an agency. I'm really keen to do that. I want to put my mark on it." They said, we think you're going to be a huge success. We'd like to be part of that. We'd like to be a financial backer in that, if that's an option. Well, I needed money. I needed, there's overhead costs of offices, there's equipment, there's, you need all your marketing materials. You do need a certain amount of money just to get going. And I didn't have that to hand. So actually, I kind of thought, well, there's an opportunity. There's a gift horse. So I accepted that offer, and it meant that I needed to set up a limited company in order for their investment they basically got shares in the company. So they took a 10% ownership of the company through shareholding. And that meant that every month when I paid myself my salary through dividends, they got the equivalent percentage share. So it was
that allowed you to scale up quickly then.
Yes, so I did. I started off with another designer who joined me pretty much immediately. Yeah, that investment was quite critical, actually, I've got to say.
And you stopped with that agency, or you're now, 2011 you moved to H&H, or setting up H&H. Do you want to talk a little bit about the transition from the one to the other?
Yeah, so Rococo Design was the one that I set up in 2007. And whilst you wear many hats when you set up a small business, you are everything. You're doing the finances, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the delivery, you're doing the HR, you're doing the whole shebang. And one of the most critical things in that industry anyway, as is many others, is actually getting the leads and the work in. So networking and getting out there and meeting people is a crucial part of your day to day. I joined the BNI group, which is a business networking group. They have groups all over the US and the UK. They meet once a week, very early morning. And the idea is that within these networking groups, you have one person representing a certain sector and you pass each other referrals. So I was lucky in that the Beverley group, which is where I live, the Beverley BNI group had a space because somebody had just left for a design expert representative. And so I bagsied that slot and I stepped in and I started meeting once a week with all these other businesses. And this is where I met my business partner, Helen, my now business partner, Helen. So I met the BNI group. She was representing leadership and life coaching. That was her specialism. Previous to that, she'd been in marketing. She was a marketing expert too. So we had a synergy and we had a similar background going on, but we just hit it off instantly in terms of our characters and our values. And she's just a super feisty, fearless individual. And we just knew that we had this similarity, this synergy, that we got on really well. And through that networking group where you are encouraged to pass referrals to each other, she actually referred to me a project that she was about to work on, and she was looking for somebody to support with the design aspects of that project. So we worked together, and it was quite an intense, and it was an important corporate piece. It was about an organisation that was consolidating their pension schemes, 13 of them, into one single pension. And we had to produce all of the comms to help with the transition through what is quite a sensitive topic, what was quite a sensitive message and path to be going down. So we tackled that together, bringing our agencies together to work collaboratively on that. And it was just a really great experience. We got on really well. We worked together well. the project was a huge success. We achieved the outcomes and the objectives that we'd set at the beginning in a very tight time scale, and had no kickback. There was the potential in this programme for there to be union intervention, for there to be a lot of kind of dissatisfaction from people in terms of changing their pension schemes. But we managed to avoid all of that through the comms programme that we delivered. And we entered it into an awards down in London. And we're really surprised to beat off the likes of Camelot, Westminster Council and Vodafone to win this award of Best Comms Programme, Best Change Comms Programme. So we got back up to Hull, having had that success. We got together over a cup of tea in the Lander Green Ginger in Hull, said, well, that was kind of fun. That went kind of well. How about, H had said, what do you think about combining our two agencies? And I thought, well, why not? And that moved me then into a different arena. I moved away from traditional design, brand and marketing, and I moved into internal communications and employee engagement. So it was a subtle shift, but a really, really fantastic one, because it's so much more fulfilling to be working in this sphere than the design.
What was it, do you think, that about that particular project that made it so successful? Because it sounds to me like a complete minefield. How did you make that go so smoothly then?
It's what makes H&H the kind of work today. So it's the understanding of the psychology of the journey people were going to be going on. And H's background in coaching, she has done many courses around psychology, NLP. So she was thinking about what emotions are people going to be going through as we transition from A to B, and what will our communications need to say or cover off in order to make them feel comfortable, to make them, to explain what's happening and why. It's the whole change curve. We actually handhold people through those change curves. My challenge within that mix was to ensure that the communications, the way they were presented, the way they look and feel, the way that they brought the message into life was appropriate and was clear, and managed to deliver what was important to people in a quick, easy, accessible way. So we combined our skill sets and our strengths, and that's really how H&H continue to this day. It's the strategic thinking, it's the psychology and science underpinning, and it's the expression of that through the creativity that then connects with people and engages people into it. So you need those combinations of skills to effectively move people from A to B in a positive way.
So where are you now with H&H? We started this conversation about proving to your dad. Do you feel that you've done that?
I think by now I might have. Yeah, I think he might be feeling that there's something in it, It's now possible to make something of Arty Farty Crap. And I'm so proud and pleased to be applying Arty Farty talent into something that's so meaningful and impactful on people's lives. That's what gives me great joy, really. Where are we at with H&H? So we have a wonderful team of people all across the UK and also in Budapest. We're still on a high growth trajectory. No intention to kind of slow that down at all. There's so many more people that we want to support and help and partner with and work with, and brilliant brands around the world doing brilliant things that we know that we can bring extra value to and help them grow. And we do really, really have great passion for ensuring that the experience within organisations enables people to be their very best self in their roles that they're in these organisations. And there's a long way to go with that. There's still a long way to go. The corporate world is still, in many respects, designed to not embrace everybody's best self. So So H&H is in a brilliant place. We're really, really proud of it. Very grateful for the team that we've got. Passionate about the work that we do, and just looking to be able to reach further across the globe. That's the plan.
And if I was to ask you, about advice to your younger self, what advice would you give to younger Hannah?
I'd love to encourage me to not have spent so many years thinking I wasn't good enough. which sounds ridiculous given the path I've just set out. But I think the crippling doubt or fear that can exist around certain aspects of growing your career or your profile, such as public speaking, such as being invited to, share your views on certain things or step out into the public light through press and offer an opinion. I've often shied away from that, but I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd just embraced the fact that whatever knowledge I had at that point was of value somewhere, that it's the typical imposter syndrome, isn't it? I'm not good enough. Nobody wants to know what I've got to say. I haven't learned enough yet. I don't know enough yet. I haven't had enough experience. Who am I to say? Forget all that. Just forget it. Just go for it.
Did you find that stopped you doing things sometimes?
Oh, it stopped me on many occasions, yeah.
What's been the impact when you have overcome that imposter syndrome?
Yeah, public speaking is probably the one where a lot of people will relate to this. And there was one time where I realised that the choice you make in what you do with that nervous energy, it can take you one or two ways, can't it? That nervous energy can pull you down and almost make you lose your voice and the shiver, the shake and the quake. You can actually rechannel that. And I discovered this in one instance when I was going into a online presentation. And I just used that energy to elevate and lift what I was talking about. I used the energy in a positive way. And it was just that experience to think, oh my goodness, okay, right. It needn't scupper you. It is, and in the end of the day, it's energy. Where do you want to channel it? Where do you want to put it? What do you want to use it for? Something just clicked for me. And then even now, I still get nervous now going in to do pitches, presentations. I can go to an event, be a speaker at an event. But I no longer feel like I'm at the mercy of that pulling me down. I can use it to lift me up.
I agree. It's just an energy, isn't it? When you hear someone speak who's not got that energy, I always think people who are too confident and don't have that nervousness, that's not a good thing. And if you speak to plenty of actors and people who, jump up on stage for a living, they still say they feel some energy and they think that's right, that they should, because it gives them that. You can see it in something. The
authenticity, isn't it? I think it's the authenticity of it. Do you know what? If you're not feeling any of that adrenaline, then there's something wrong, isn't there? You're obviously not enjoying that anymore.
No. So final question. This obviously is an easy one for you, given what you do for a living. Strapline or, title for your story.
Do the Arty Farty Crap.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Hannah. I've really enjoyed our discussion today. So thank you so much for your time.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you, Mel. That was a lot of fun.
That was such a fun conversation with Hannah, and I really loved the way that she chose to follow her heart and her passion and really do what made her happy and made her heart sing in her career. I was really struck by the conversation around the power of work experience and how that can have an enormous effect on young people, and particularly if you give them something meaningful and interesting to do as part of that work experience. And I really was interested, perhaps as a psychologist, in that interplay of psychology in understanding organisational change and how you can use video and internal comms to really make sure that you're hitting people with the right messages in a way that they're really going to understand them and take them on board. And the final thing was this idea of imposter syndrome and how actually that nervous energy that you get when you're doing something unfamiliar and challenging can really channel that energy and turn it to some use, and how it gives you a sort of life and passion when you're talking about something that you really love. So yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. It was such a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Secret Resume. If you did, remember to like, share, comment and subscribe, as that helps people like you find people like us.